there is another story of the Soviet paradigm that links very much to that what you have here as a law now, which is called the decommunization law, the banning, so to say, of Soviet symbols. It is out of the atelier of Soviet and post-Soviet generation of three, grandfather, father, and son, yeah? Sculptures that have contributed to very much to, so to say, to all the periods that are declined through in the following pages, in the following, so to say, parcours of the exhibition. The father, the grandfather, has been a revolutionary 1920s sculptor that was then a bit entangled with the Stalinist period. The son was a famous Stalinist, realistic sculptor, but he survived that. He has done, by the way, the sculptures that are now decorating the Ukrainian parliament. And even after 92, he was still involved in the new national monuments on Maidan. And he survived the Stalinist period and did a lot of war memorials in the 60s and 70s throughout the Soviet Union. And the son now is a sculpture that portraits the international classes, one can say. You can see Nelson Mandela here and so on and so on. So they are at the core of constructing a realist paradigm. So you have the deconstruct, they have the revolutionary beginnings, you have this feminist approach, and the deconstruction, so to say, of Stalinism, and the whole period of sculptures here at the beginning as an entry. And on the other hand, you have in the second schisma, so to say, of the last century, which is 9/11, where in a strange way, from an American artist of the 1980s, 1990s, group material that have been very, very active collective, yeah. He on the 12th of September, one day after 9/11, yeah. When, so to say, the other challenge of otherness that is coming, that it was the second schisma after the Cold War, namely the other of the Islamic fundamentalism appeared. He remembered again, so to say, the revolutionary abstraction, yeah, and painted on the New York Times of that period. He painted abstractly, cut out, reflected on that paper on the day after 9/11. So, and this whole, one could say, tells the story of the dispersion of the abstraction, and on the other hand, the political consequences and political shifts around that. For instance, to come here, there is the video of a Canadian experimental filmmaker who was as well at the core of experimental filmmaking in the 1950s, but he was a leftist communist in the McCarthy period, living in America. I don't know if you know what the McCarthy period was. It was where they haunted communists, yeah, the suppressed communists. And Robert Breer, this abstract filmmaker, made something like, in the narrative of American abstractions, he made this film, but there's always the black square appearing in the film as a hidden coinage or as a hidden sign of his communism, though the film fits totally into the anti-communist abstract propaganda of the Americans. So there's always this play with this form, the black square. So the black square always reappears. And back here, you see another version of that, and it has to do with decommunization again. It is a very famous mosaic maker from here, whose mosaics are getting destroyed now. He was studying in Heidelberg in the 1950s. He was one of the few that has been allowed, and he tried to somehow compromise the German idealistic abstraction with the iconological program of the modernist Soviet Union. And a Slovak artist made this very nice video about, so to say, how this abstraction appears in modernism all around the world, and about this filmmaker confronted here with the other political narrative. This is a piece by Popov, where he collects the phrases of the last 20 years of Ukrainian election campaigning. Election campaigning is something that is coming back in the National Museum of Art again. But then, so to say, things are breaking up. Yeah, you are having the late Stalinist suppression of religion and orthodoxy and Jewishness. So this case is back to this case by Odessa artist Bronov, who was he's still living, who lived under suppression in Odessa. Now, this motive of monument construction, monument deconstruction reappears once more. Related to this piece here, this is a series by Turkish artist Asli Cavazoglu, who is showing the destruction of a revolutionary monument through the Young Turks, which means the Turkish nationalists. Yeah, she gets found footage from 1917, 1918. This is a piece by Indian artist Sheila Galda. She's a very famous artist. She has been a documental art documenter. She's at Venice Biennial now. And it is again about, so to say, how this formalist paradigm of Malevich and revolution came back. She has been collecting all these things on Indian flea markets that show, so to say, the traces on the flea markets of suprematism, yeah? And she has made a small temple for the black square, but it is a fake black square, and that's all painted with Indian temple colors, by the way. So it is color from Indian temple colors. On the other hand, this paradigm has as well been very important for South America. In South America in the 50s, Ukrainian artists migrated or fled from Stalinism. A lot of the South American abstract art came through a guy called Lazar, and we asked Ricardo Baspam, a Brazilian artist, to draw the psychogeography of the arrival, so to say, of this political abstraction in Brazil, and how that still is alive in the communities and how it works. It's about collectiveness and so on and so on. Whereas here, there is another arrival, so to say, of the constructivist thing. You see a Lisitsky here, it's by a Spanish artist, Daniel Garcia Andujar. He is for 20 years running a media critical collective called Technology to the People. So not technology to the companies, but technology to the people. And This is all abstractions of computer viruses through an algorithms that have been used in Secret Service actions, and he makes flowers out of them. But this is really a gun that now is used widely in warfare. It's a 3D print of the. You can print you just cannot just print your glasses or your whatsoever, but you really can 3D print weapons now. And Daniel Garcia arranged them like a piece. This 3D. If you put them together, it's really 3 pistols that you can use in warfare. But if you lay them down here, it's really like the. Like another, so to say, suprematist manifesto. Now here we come to another thing. As I said, the paradigm of form is much more here. The paradigm of politics is much more here. And that's an in-between, I would say. That's coming out of the Polish context of the 1970s. Various elsewhere in Europe after the Prague Revolution, after the Prague Spring, and that has been torn down by the Warsaw Pact troops. In Warsaw, there was still, in Poland, there was still the ability to think collectively, to imagine, so to say, another practice, and this is by a group called Kyiv. What they are doing is coming from an art academy course. It is a very, very famous Polish actress of that period that is giving her face, like as if, I don't know what a famous actress, like Mila Jovovich would give her face to the academy for a collective action of students on her face. It's an early piece of media criticism, And the thing was that the paradigm was very, very clear. One group of the students start with an action on the face of the media star. The next would develop from that what that group has developed. And strangely enough, there is an early feminist piece as well. Here you're seeing a painting that is. Please don't step too much on these; they fall down. We didn't have time and money enough to construct them thoroughly, so please don't break in here. It's tearing down Lenin 1992, so it's the first Denkmalsturz, the first iconoclasm by Ukrainian artists. This is by Mykola Rydny, whom you for sure know. Mykola Rydny found out that in the last 5 years there is, or in the last 2 years especially, that there is this decoration with flags is everywhere. You have it in your cars, you have it everywhere. It's understandable, but it's over-decorating even emancipatory moments, So he's using very ordinary symbols or things that are coming out of the, like a car, like a lamp, like a bus stop, and so on. They're over-decorating, especially with these national anthems. And it's in that way, it's making it opaque, it's making it closed. It's about how to consider how nationalism, how really, so to say, rightist nationalism could destroy the universality and the egalitariety that the Ukrainian nation is built upon, multi-ethnical, multilingual. And this comes from 1995 in a very troublesome period as well, from Volodymyr Kaufman, an artist from Kyiv, which is so in the same section. It is a reflection to, so to say, the decline of the Soviet, but to the upcoming thing as well. It's a performance where he cuts everything into 2 pieces. Everything into 2 pieces. So good and bad, left and right, whatsoever. Everything into 2 pieces. We found it a strong metaphor. It's a very strong video. So then we go into already an international, I would say, frame of what is a nation, what is a map, what does it mean to create a territory. This is a video by two artists from a country, the Lebanon, that has really suffered from divisions, from nationalism for a long, long, long period. Yeah, and it's done out of something like 10,000 photos of Beirut, and the photos of Beirut make something like a sunset and a dawn in Beirut, but what it's quoting, and we have to translate that, is a very famous poem of a Palestinian poet. It's called "The Barbarians Are Coming." The barbars, the barbarians are coming, yeah? So like, around the barbarians are here. You look like what's going on in Europe at the moment, yeah? With all the Syrian refugees, the barbarians are coming. But it stops at a strange point, saying then in the end phrase, but they did not come. They did not come. Though they have been our solution. You understand? They are a solution for nationalism, because if you can create another as an enemy, yeah? You always can create the barbarians, the others as an enemy, and it's a very strong poem. It's a very strong poem.
Why are the streets and squares are being so rapidly?
If you go in here, this is a map. This is a map by another Lebanese artist from Shaka, and it is about the appropriation of land. So what you're having in Crimea, what you're having elsewhere, yeah? It is a Danish consul that comes to Beirut with the occupation of Beirut, of the territory, of the Palestinian territory, when Beirut is getting occupied, yeah? And what does this Danish consul to the Sultan, yeah? He draws a map of Beirut for the first time, where all the strategical buildings are somehow strangely... but this map is upside down, so the south is in the north is in the south. Yeah? It is not Beirut. So he makes already a concession to Arab map making, because in Arabia, in the Arabic map making is the same. Here you turn the south there. Or it is just a concession to his arrival, because if you arrive to the coast, to Beirut, you arrive that way. But you don't arrive from the south, you arrive from the north. Yeah? So it's both the colonial gaze and the post-colonial gesture of appropriation. And Tony Chaka found this map, and he inserted in that, because of this beautiful modernist building. It's a work of the late civil war in Beirut, yeah, where a lot of the modernist Beirut, which was a metaphor for liberality in the Arab world, was destroyed and no longer existed. He made a mind map of the buildings of this beautiful modernist Beirut, with all the egalitarian fantasies that he had lived not just lived in, but had inhabited in the Hamra, and put it back to the map. So it's a comment to this building as well. Well, then nationalism starts, as I said, map making starts, and Soviet post-Soviet starts. That's why we have here a central piece of the work by the Beit Hidden. It's called "Why Do We Need a Nation State?" Yeah? Nation state in the rightist sense, yeah? By Sani Iveković's nephew Rade Iveković is a very famous political philosopher that has worked around the Yugoslav wars and around the nationalist separations and clashes in the Yugoslav wars, and she poses the questions, why do we need a nation state? And then sign language translator, translates it as a performance, yeah? Which I find very important as well. This is by Lesia Komenko. You know her maybe as a famous realist painter, coming from the rap group. And she says at the moment she cannot paint realistic anymore because of her vision is so blurred by media, so she does not know what truth is. So why can she paint realistically? So she paints realistically, but she covers everything with this glass. Here is another thing about bridging gaps. And crossing borders and trying to navigate between the Soviet, the post-Soviet, between a nationalist and another paradigm by a Russian artist called Taus Makacheva. She comes from Dagestan. It's here.
Why the sudden restlessness? Serious people's spaces have become. Wow, the streets and squares are so rapidly.
It has been produced for the Kyiv Biennial, like a lot of pieces in here, like the Ridny piece, like the piece of Anna Dauchikova. And it is the leftovers of the National Museum of Dagestan, or the paintings of the National Museum of Dagestan, that an equilibrist, or a rope dancer you would say, is without any security carrying between a big gap. You could see a divided nation, yeah? Trying to bring cultural heritage, yeah? In a very, very insecure situation. And when Taus was often calling me when she did the piece, she said, because we have another production day, he has no security. What if he falls down? Then am I responsible for a death? And you see the National Museum is encaged in this beautiful landscape. It's part of the School of Landscape as well. And this schisma, so to say, this breaking apart of context, is part of another very, very beautiful piece by Yuri Leiderman that you see here. Then back there, if you go to the video, Yuri Leiderman has been living in a Jewish, Russian, Ukrainian mixed community of artists for 30 years. He was founder of the group Medical Hermeneutics. He's quite an international figure that always communicated with Moscow and so on and so on. And they have been living together totally peacefully. Yeah? But when the war broke out, suddenly they started to nationalize somehow, yeah, and put themselves Facebook postings, ugly Facebook postings that blurred, so to say, the friendship, which is really happening, yeah. And he's constructing that from the Facebook postings. On the other hand, he's carrying, like in a procession, like in a political process procession, he's carrying the works of. They're carrying the works of these people through the streets of Odessa. Maybe a funeral procession for an artistic community, maybe a political protest. It's a very, very beautiful piece, and it as well was commissioned by us. Well, this piece by Ladana Konechna is, you see, some abstractions here. This piece by Ladana Konechna is she said she made it during the days of Maidan. She conceived it during the days of Maidan because she found that a political subject was created at Maidan that did not have a voice, because it was ordinary people that stood up and gathered and whatsoever. So she and in the school they always needed a hero, something like a hero, yeah. And so she collected quotes from very famous Russian and Ukrainian plays like Gogol, but she did not select the sentence of the heroes, but the sentence of the no-name, like the worker, the ba-ba-ba, the da-da-da. So one that has just this partial role, yeah? And she made, this is a game, so to say, of these partial roles, like a community that wants together, that wants to work together, but doesn't have found something like a voice for that and is hanging around somewhere and trying to create something else. So that's the Taos Makacheva register now, so that's what you've seen there. Here there is this stage for debate, stage for producing, stage for the schools. Here is a piece by European artist, female artist, Tanja Wittmann, that is dealing with the construction of a female political collective. It's called One of You, and the You is female, yeah? And it stems from a famous manifesto of 2013 that took of that females, but it's a totally abstract, like an abstract gaze piece. And on female conditions, we're working here as well. With Alisa Gleitman. She is an outspoken, unfortunately a video monitor is missing, but she's an outspoken, so to say, a person that really deals with her own drug addiction, with her status as a woman here. She's a famous painter, but on the other hand, there is this other reality around her. And so she wanted to display this other reality around her. Like here, Stas Wojciechowski is displaying the reality of political jokes in this cabinet. That's almost like, a toilet cabinet with full of political jokes. Putin fucking a cow and telling it to Khomeini and so on. So this was that about the story of the two formal paradigms that then suddenly gets into identity constructions. And the first floor and the second floor is really about the problem of the subject. But we have two more pieces here. One is a piece by Georgian artist Amuna Chavashvili. It's almost like an abstract piece about the display that we are having here, done by Johannes Korsch. Yeah, it's like looking through an empty exhibition space, but it's not an empty exhibition space. But she says, my homeland, Georgia, is so full of memory that are so conflicting. I want to see the city of Tbilisi without these conflicts. What is it? What would it be if it would be just an abstract figure, yeah? Where I can enwrite my memories newly, and they're not so full of history and memories. Cleaning it up from history and memories to think about the possible future. And this is a piece by Anna Tsevagitseva. It was done in the Maidan days as well. She just drew drawing of her window with flowers and whatsoever, and then she came home from the Maidan and she smashed it because there was something else, smashed it, and she found it again, and we reconstructed the smashed flowers as a memory of the anti-idyllic Maidan. So we have talked about the politics of form, the politics of politics, the politics of memory, the politics of nationalism, identity. Here we're talking much more about the subject. What are we in these conditions, yeah? How do we feel? Maybe we feel lost as well. Maybe we don't know how to format each other. Maybe we need another place. This is very nice because we found a young Ukrainian artist who is doing photos that look like, I would say, strange military power plants or whatsoever, or strange abstract forms, but they're just that's what you have on the building here. Yeah? It's really a nice abstraction. But then we're starting it with quite a number of sculptures of an Austrian sculptor. He's 76 now. And for us, he is one of the deep thinkers about the subject, what it means to be a human being, yeah? Filled up with all cultural reflections and nevertheless just like this is not a spine, it is something like it does like this. And it gets a spine. And the mask is a mask, it is a reflection as well on post-coloniality. This is just and he always starts with small sentences. This sentence, for instance, where he starts from is a feeling person that thinks itself whole. So it's like you are in this permanent quarrel with yourself, yeah? Considering and considering. There is another famous sentence which is very much about society as well. Eternal truth swears the circle to its center. It's all about the whole, the empty space. And we confront this with a reading of a positive emancipatory element, which is by Wendelin van Oldenburg. She followed the self-empowerment of a group of migrants in Britain, in London, and she shows them in their power. It's a really strong piece about their culture, about how you can create otherness and the self-esteem. Yeah. Pablo Belzia was a famous Soviet underground artist in Uzhhorod. Yeah? He's a hidden hero of some artists here. And for me, they are not just metaphors for, let's say, psychogeographical things of the late Soviet Union and the first transition years, post-surrealist considerations, but they are like the nets, the spider webs, the spinal nets that bureaucracy webs you in, that your thinkings web you in. It's very, very nice drawings. Yeah, to interpret them is even too much because of they speak for themselves. Various, the graphic designer of the School of Kiev, Tim Gatman, is an artist as well, doing these peculiar small drawings that refer to modernism. And this table is about Babichar. I don't have to tell you what Babichar is, yeah? So another troubled, and how somehow a German lives with that guilt, yeah? Entangling modernism, how a German can work that through, that Germans have killed, huh? And going back to Klee and Walter Benjamin and all these German philosophers, it's a very deep piece as well. This is another group of sculptures by Heinz Frank. Where you see is you see a piece by Mathieu Kibele-Abonenc that has been as well at the moment at the Venice Biennial, reflecting, so to say, on the ethnographical aspect of the post-colonial. You understand what the post-colonial is, so to say, yeah? The ethnographizing Africa or whatsoever, yeah? It comes from his father's collection. He himself is a pariah in the French world because he was born in Martinique. Another piece by Tausma Kachaeva on Caucasian noses. Huh? It is a landscape of the Caucasus made of Caucasian noses. And you know that what we had in the 30s in Germany or in Austria or the Nazi regime, the Jewish nose, it was something like it was a mark. And a joke issue as well. So it's the Caucasus made of Caucasian noses, but it's not just the typical Caucasian noses. There's some of them are searched as well. Looking back to these strange connections of the subject, we have a Turkish artist, İnci Furni has been working together with a collective of ordinary craftsmen in Istanbul who tried to somehow survive under the pressure of that their work is now migrating to Southeast Asia. Because of that, what they have produced, this can be produced easier in Southeast Asia. So what they do is they founded a collective and they work together with their different skills. And what she's showing here is just the transport boxes and the everyday life of this. What is entangling them? It's a landscape, or it is maybe a fair, or maybe whatsoever, but it is a piece about collectivity and how one can self-organize even against the forces of, like Vasil and the VCRC allowed us to do against, together with us, to do against all the obstacles of doing a biennial. That's what these workers on a different level do. They self-organize and just make it and survive in very complicated circumstances. Another piece that I find very taking, I have to say, because of it is from an artist that you all know, but from very different things. Yeah, it's Oleg Tistel. You know Tistel for the palm trees, series of palm trees, series of rock, series of media paintings. But here you see Tistel's first paintings when he left the academy. And you see Tistel in '85 at the high period of the Afghanistan war when he was in the army. And he reflects about his identity as a painter in these three self-portraits. There is the classical self-portrait, very much like Max Beckmann, a reflection on the frame and on the self-portrait. This is more the self-portrait of the Soviet underground guy, Americanized underground guy, already with the baseball cap. And here, that's the real position, the soldier in the army. So he has three identities at that period, yeah? The painter, the underground guy, and the soldier in the armies, and they're painterly very well done. This is a totally different piece. It comes from a hardcore queer artist from Europe, Toni Schmale, German. It is the Feast of Revolution that you can carry here. But it is her own feast. To say that here, that a feast fuck, and that's another dangerous thing. Yeah. So it is both. It is aggressive and revolutionary and self-reflective as her status as a queer person in a neoliberal society here. So it's not just a very famous painter, but she in a lot of series has reflected on the wounds and traps that women in a hierarchical, patriarchal society do to themselves, so to say, to attract the society. Sometimes it's about plastic surgery, sometimes it's about consumerism, sometimes it's about just being trapped by buying clothes and so on and so on. But it's on almost a Francis Bacon-like reflection of the woman. So you have the reflection of the man, the famous Ukrainian painter, and the self-reflection of the famous Ukrainian women painter, together with the self-reflection of the queer. And it's three subjects that are in danger, so to say, that reflect on painting and sculpture here. This is a piece by a Georgian artist. I mean, Georgia is in a bit the same state than you are. But it had the first intervention of the Russian annexion. And there is this famous traditions of supra, where the family is keeping the tablecloths, and the women are sewing this tablecloth, keeping it at home. They're making a family fest out of that, and so on and so on and so on. And she as well reflects on the status of the woman. She works with these women in the countryside. They sew that, they make that, yeah. And I cannot translate the sentence properly, but who can read Russian can read it. I think it says something like, I just wanted to inscribe myself at the university, but then my father told me that I'm already married to a man that I don't know. So it is about a woman trapped that wants to get rid of the trap. So this is all about the subject. And this is a very nice Polish artist who is deconstructing famous heroes of male thinking as she's making bread portraits out of them, like Sartre, Lévi-Strauss, Platon, all these male heroes, Andy Warhol. Make them small bread sculptures, eat them and digest them. Yeah? And it's very nice piece as well. Another piece of the Monachashvili with a similar theme. And we stopped this all with a very poetic reflection on this, on objecthood, subject, and abstraction by a Slovak artist, it's more poem for me, a sculptural poem. She goes through the landscape, finds some stones, finds something, arranges them, flitter around them, pills around them. She carves something in gypsum and it looks like Brancusi. She sews as well, but in the end it is like a dream and daydream poetry that reflects abstraction again. You see the black, the red, blue and yellow, so it's going back to Malevich downstairs, but a totally different Malevich, and she uses these things very abstractly, forms abstractly, but it is a poem. For me it's a visual poem. And there we will install tomorrow a piece by Adelita Husni-Bey about migration and displacement. So that was the story of this. We are having other stories to tell, which would be the Dovzhenko Center, yeah? To give you a short abstract, the basement of the Dovzhenko Center, I would say, is about the dreams of capitalist society. Yeah? Like German bankers imagining them to have protoplasma like in a seance, about evidence making in computer machines so that they can scan your mind by a very poetic thing about migrants, like a very beautiful piece by Imogen Stidversi about the misuse of blind people for secret services, so they can decipher things. Yeah? And like what the cinematic film material does it's a film factory where we're having this, in a film by Schrödinger Bernien about the decline of a GDR, German Democratic Republic, film factory, and about the color of aqua color, it's called, what color does to create the gaze, and so on. It's all about the reflection of the subsoul of capitalism, its psychic geographies, and the construction of the image, whereas the fifth floor is really showing image and evidence with a lot of pieces. So people that have documented really the war under critical conditions, people that have reread archives for like Katharina Simao, for thinking what is the truth here, what is the fourth thing, how can we reconcile. People like Nicola Groch from here, who has been the first one that has been sent to Cambodia to draw after the Khmer Rouge revolution ended, to give visual evidence. People like Graciela Carnevale, who has transformed from an artist, a minimalist artist, to a revolutionary in the dictatorship in Brazil. So it's about truth and image, and it's always embedded is a Soviet filmmaker. And then there is one passage that it's about, so to say again, the rhetorics of migration. On the left-hand side, you would find wood that has been really cut on the borders of the Republika Srpska and Bosnia-Herzegovina and brought to here, yeah? Because of, this is another separation that we had to face in like 10 years ago, of countries that are now hostile to each other, though they have been united, yeah? And a reflection about the borders that you have to cross, that you cannot enter because if you're Serbian or because if you're Bosnian or whatsoever. Then the middle part is dealing with the heraldic symbols of capital, of and the last part is a very beautiful reflection on a Crimea Tatar song that became very famous through an interpretation of Marlene Dietrich in the Second World War. The melody comes from Crimea, from the Tatars, and it's called Where Have All the Flowers Gone? Long time passing, where have all the flowers gone? Long time ago. And you know the other sentences is where have all the soldiers gone? Long time passing, where have all the soldiers gone? Long time ago. When will they ever learn? When will they ever learn? So it's about this, and then there is the School of Image and Evidence in the first floor. I could tell you maybe next time about the other venues. Thank you for your